Hello guys, this is Brian Tubbs coming at you with another video. Today is going to be a quick video, hopefully. Today I'm working on a donut, and I'm also working on some other pieces for the piece we call reaching. I'll put a shot up of it, but you guys I'm sure have seen that one. The guys that have been around this channel for a while. But what I'm focusing on today is just grinding some stainless steel TIG beads. When you're grinding stainless steel, it can be pretty difficult if you're not sure of exactly how to do it. When you grind TIG stainless steel beads, it's a little bit easier to grind those than if you're grinding a MIG stainless steel weld. MIG welds are really hard, in the first place, but then when you add stainless steel to that equation, it gets even worse. There's a video I did, probably a year and a half ago or something like that, when I was grinding, I think it was the base for Heart of Man. And I talked about in that video how it took me a day and a half to grind the welds that my wife had welded with the MIG welder. We were running, I think it was 308 MIG wire. And she did an excellent job welding it, but it's just, MIG welding is just so difficult to do. And so what I was using at that time was these, we call grinding stones. This one is by the Weld, and this one is by Ryobi. It doesn't matter the brand; they are basically, pretty close to being the same. I'm not sure if the same manufacturer makes most of them and just put people's, different companies' names on them. But it's just a hard disc. It's about when you buy them, it's about a 1/4 inch, wide this way, and I think it's like 4.5 inches. What is it? Yeah, I think it's like 4.5 inches diameter. And so with that, the base for Heart of Man, I went through, I think it was 2 of these, completely through these hard rock, we call them hard rock discs, to try and knock those welds down. And it took me about a day and a half to do it. It was loud as anything. Trying to cut through the MIG weld with these things, it just took forever, throwing stuff everywhere, and I had to close the doors so the people around us wouldn't be like calling the cops on us because of all this noise. They just probably couldn't figure out what all the noise was, but it was using these grinding discs. So whenever you use these rock discs or hard grinding discs like this, it's going to make a lot of noise. They work pretty good if you're doing like mild steel, something along that line. They'll work a lot better than using my stainless steel. So what I came up with was a new technique after a lot of kind of hit and miss. But let me show you guys the discs that I use now. So these are the discs that we use now. Now that after I did research and just started asking around, I went to my supply house and told them what issues I was having, and they had some of these. They called flat discs. They had them in it was a 36 grit, but it was red, and I can't remember if that was I can't remember what compound it was, but it was a red material, CGW, and the part number of the red ones was 48012, and the part for this disc that I'm using now is a 48102. I think the red disc was a ceramic. I think it was ceramic material, but this one is a resin fiber disc. So I know this is resin. I could be wrong on the red ones as being ceramic, but I think they're ceramic, but they're red. And they were fine on mild steel. But when I, started trying to use those on stainless steel, they would just kind of work for, a couple minutes and they'll be done, worn out. But then I found these resin ones, and this is a 36 grit, and they work better than the red ones. They last longer. But what I was doing before I found these is I was just using just regular flap disc. So what I would do is, like, this is a 40 grit, and I would take a flap disc and put it on the stainless bead and just start trying to grind it down. And before I knew it, the flap disc was disintegrated. And so what we do now, let me get a little bit closer so you guys can see these. Okay, so this is the flat disc, 36 grit. It's a resin disc. It has this blue surface. Really, it feels tough, like really tough. And then this is a 40 grit flat disc. This is by Work Pro. I get these on Amazon. It's a pack of 20 for, I think, like $26, $27. You get 10 40 discs, and then you get like 360, a couple 80s, and some I think it's 120s. So for like 27 bucks. If I go to my supply house, they sell one 40 grit disc for like $6 or $7, which to me is just not worth it. And so what I'll be doing today is showing you guys how we use this combination to get the stainless steel beads, knocked down a lot faster, and how to blend it into the whatever, sculpture you're making. So what I'm going to do is move the camera in to the piece, the donut, just kind of let you guys see what I'm doing. All right, guys, I'm back. So this is the donut that I'm working on. I've already grinded the center. I mean, that's not anything different than being out here. And plus, if I had been grinding this, I would have been in your way, and way of the camera and everything. So not a big deal. So I've grinded this area already, and now I have to grind this bead down. And like I said, the stainless steel is really hard and can be difficult to grind. But when you use a TIG welder, it's the bead is softer than if you're using a MIG welder. And I'm just using DeWalt grinders. And on this one, I have just a 60 grit. And then on this one, I have a 36 grit flat disc. This is a 60 grit flap disc. I normally use a 40 grit, but I had a 60 grit laying around, so I just picked that up and just started using that. So, and like I said, what I used to do is I would just take a 40 grit disc, and regardless if it's this donut or if it's a sculpture, a different sculpture, whatever, doesn't matter. I would use a 40 disc, a 40 grit disc, and I would just start just grinding. I'll turn this on so you can see what I'm talking about. And although this is it grinds it pretty good. The problem is these discs for 27 bucks for 20 of them won't last that long. So by the time I get maybe I don't know, 3 feet maybe, if that, this will be down to paper. There will be no more grit on here. So what we do now is I take my flat disc first and go around and knock the crown off of the bead. And when I'm grinding, I'm not holding my grinder on this angle. I'm holding it more flat and more in toward the horizontal top piece here. Because my goal is to blend this bead in with the top of that metal as much as possible and just make it look as nice as possible. My goal is not to take the weld off on the, most of this weld on the outer edge. I want to keep that weld there as much as I can, because the weld on the outside here is what's keeping these two pieces together. So when you think about it, if your grinder is on this angle right here, I'm kind of extreme, but if you're more on this angle here, you're taking the majority of your weld off of the outer edge. But what you want to do is smooth this weld out here, smooth it out. You really want to concentrate most of your pressure on this inner area here, because you want to blend this weld in with the top of this metal here. So as opposed to being like this, I'm more flat and slightly leaning forward into the piece, just a little bit. I don't want the grinder digging into this metal, so I don't want this really sharp angle. So it's more flat, but just kind of leaning in toward the piece just a little bit. You can kind of see the trace around here of how I did it. Although I was using my 60 grit, there's no difference in height here. I didn't take material away. It's just you can kind of see the marks from the grinder, but that's fine because we're going to put different grind marks in here and whatnot anyway. But I guess important part is having your grinder more flat and leaning slightly into the piece. So I'll give you a demonstration of that. And what we do is like I said, we just take the crown off with this flat disc, and then we'll switch over to the flap disc to kind of blend it in a little bit better. All right, here we go. And if you notice, my disc is kind of leaning into the piece, but I'm not really hitting that piece with this grinding disc. I'm trying to keep it just above it. I'm trying to hover over it. And what I'm trying to do is get this lip right here down as much as I can. I don't want a really high lip right here, because that'll just mean I'll have to take my flap disc and do more work. And I'm trying to eliminate some of the work just so that that disc will last longer, you know, by trying to take that lip down, because that's really what I'm focused on, is that little lip. Let me see something. This little lip right here. I'm trying to take that down, because over here it's a lot better. I'm almost sliding off, but here I'm hitting it a little bit more right there. So that's my focus, is getting that lip to roll down that way as opposed to being up this way. All right, that's not too bad. Now I'm gonna give my my flap disc a chance and just see how it's taking the edges down, that edge down. If it's not, I'll take my flat disc again and just just touch it up a little bit more. Or I can change out and put on a new flap disc, because this one's getting pretty worn out around here. But I'm just trying to keep from having to keep changing out discs. So I use my discs as much as I possibly can. So let me see what I can do here. Again, as you can see, the lip is gone. But I'm not taking a lot of metal off back here. I'm trying to keep as much metal on there as in the seam where the two pieces come together. I'm trying to keep as much of that metal there as I possibly can. So I'm really just kind of rolling forward just a little bit, trying to blend that edge in to this the horizontal sheet metal up here. That's my goal right there. And as I go along, I'm kind of thinking of things to let you guys know. If you notice, when I'm going this way, it's not taking much material off. But when I kind of hover and pull it toward me, that's when it starts blending in a lot faster. But if you're doing this, it's kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, you'll notice you'll start getting your grinder will be digging into the metal for one thing, but it will take you a lot longer because you're really not letting the surface of your grinding disc come in contact with the weld bead. So if you'll notice, when I pull back, I'm pulling back kind of slowly, and I'm allowing the grinding disc to do the work, and not me trying to force it and all that kind of stuff. So just keep your eye on that. As I pull back, you'll see me going kind of slow. And I'm pulling back, and I'm just blending this in with that. if you saw that, this is blended in, completely blended in already. Now I just have one more spot here. So it's not about pushing it back and forth, back and forth. I used to do that a lot. I'll be back and forth, and before you know it, 2 hours have gone by, and I'm still working within a foot, trying to go back and forth. No, you just take your time, lay your grinder down, and start pulling it. Just gently. I'm kind of leaning into the piece this way, and just kind of pulling it, just gently. I'm not leaning in where the front edge will start digging in, but it's just enough to kind of hover over this area here with the very edge of this. Once you start doing it, what you can do is get some scrap and run a couple beads and just kind of practice pulling it towards yourself until you get the feel of it. And then once you get the feel, you'll understand what I'm saying. It's kind of hard. It's not hard to explain it, but it'll be easier for you once you do it a few times, whether it's stainless steel or mild steel. If you get that technique down and just start pulling it towards yourself, your bead it'll be gone. It'll just kind of just blend right in. But if you're back and forth, you're not in one spot long enough for your grinding disc to take the metal down, because you're just kind of skimming over everything. All right, let me get this last spot right here. And just that quickly, that bead is gone. And another thing, if you're grinding and your metal starts looking, purple, red, orange, blue in a spot, that means you're applying too much heat. You're in that spot too long. So you move away from that spot, allow that spot to cool down, and then you come back over it and go on beyond it. But what I'll do is when I see, the metal turning different colors, I'll move, then I'll go back and just lightly blend that area in. So I'm removing the heat marks by going back over, just kind of blending it in. And there you have it. That's just using a flat disc first, and then using your flap disc second. And the thing with a flat disc, when you're grinding, so you're grinding a sculpture. This is a 3-inch pad on the back. This disc is a 4.5 inch diameter. My disc is about 3 inches, 3.5, something like that. So when you're using these, you start out just on a slight angle. Just, it's going. You're not digging in, it's not an extreme angle, it's kind of on a flat angle. And then when I notice that section starting to wear out, I'll lay it a little bit flatter. So now I'm using this material to grind. So I'm gonna get a little pointer. So when you first start out, I lay it kind of flat, but not completely flat. I'm still on a slight angle because I'm trying to use this material in here, this section. And then once this section starts wearing out, and as I'm grinding, I'm not taking the material off, I'll lay it a little bit flatter so I can start using this material in here. It's right in there. And it'll take it down a little bit more. Then when I notice that area is worn out and not taking material off, and when I notice this area is not taking much more material off, I'll move to the very outer edge of this material. So what I'll do is I'll have it more on an angle, and this outer material here is kind of folding, just slightly folding over the edge of this backing plate here, if you will. It's not like a sharp bend, it's just a slight angle. And I'm using that slight angle to use the material out here to finish grinding this thing. So when I get done with these discs, it's not much grit left on the discs because I've used, you know, all the areas on this thing. So that's how it's done, guys. Let me move this camera back out. All right, guys. So that's how we do it. So now the next thing I'll do is just take a worn flap disc, FLAP, and I'll go right around these edges, right around the perimeter here, because it's kind of sharp, right around here, all the way around. Just clean that up, just so when you run your hand over it, it'll be, you know, nice and smooth. It won't, because right now it's really sharp because these two pieces of metal are meeting, and that edge is really pretty sharp right now. So what I'll do next is just take my flap disc and just go right around those edges, just like that, all the way around, just to get it all smoothed out. And all right, guys, that's how it's done. No big deal, but when I was using these rocks, if I was using a rock on this piece, I would still be working on this piece. It will probably take me, I don't know, a couple hours to do it. And then I'm taking the chance on having a lot of like divots and whatnot in the metal. So with me researching, and even when I went to the my metal outlet, they had the red ones. They didn't have these blue ones. So I told them I needed something tougher. So they kind of researched it and found out that CGW made this resin one that was more geared toward, you know, your stainless steels, your harder metals. And so I was able to come up with this 36 grit resin. And again, I use most of the time I use the 40 grit flap disc from Amazon, Work Pro. You get 20 of them for like $26 or $27, something like that. All right, guys, well, that's gonna do it for this one. And if you didn't know this stuff, I hope you learned something. And I hope to see you on the next video. I'm not sure what I'll be working on. I think I'm going to be just getting some scrap metal around here that's just kind of laying around. And I'm gonna start trying to piece together a completely new sculpture. So I think it's time to just, like I say, just do some different stuff. Every now and then I get tired of making the same ones. Although people are, you know, constantly wanting them, they're buying them and whatnot. I will not stop making the pieces that I make, but I want to add something else, do something different. Just keep the mind, you know, moving and fresh. All right, guys, that's going to do it. And like I said, I hope to see you on the next one. And as usual, peace out.